And now to our conversation tonight, we'll turn our attention to the student loan initiative of the Tinubu administration. The vision, we understand, is to revolutionize education accessibility across Nigeria and making it possible for more students to pursue higher education and become valuable contributors to national development. With the initiative, the administration aims to provide interest-free loans to students of tertiary institutions, starting with federal universities, polytechnics, colleges of education, and technical colleges. Well, let's get to where they are as we speak and what are the plans for the new year. Joining me is Managing Director and CEO of N133, Akintunde Sawyer. Mr. Sawyer, thanks for joining us on the program this evening. Our last conversation together on air was on the first day of the year, and I recall at the time you mentioned that about 18.5 billion naira have been disbursed to institutions, right? And 115,000 students have received stipends. But we have since been inundated by letters of acknowledgement and receipt of students' loan grants from quite a number of these institutions. So let's begin with an update on the figures as they are today. How much have you disbursed, and what is the number of students that have received payment as of today?
Okay, Nifemi, thank you very much for having me back. I must have done something right on the first day of the year for you to invite me back. It's a great pleasure to be here. First of all, let me commend the visionary person behind this project. And I think it's important to do that because this is a truly magnanimous and altruistic initiative by His Excellency, the President of Nigeria, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, GCFR. What I want to say about the figures is this. So since the last time we met, we have continued to receive applications and we have continued to disburse. So to date, 194 institutions have received funds directly from N133 based on applications made by students. The number of students who have made that possible and who are today benefiting from this is 261,768. The total amount, I'm pleased to report to you, of institutional fees paid is 22,730,533,000 naira. And upkeep is 13,151,500,000 naira. So effectively, the numbers have gone up significantly, both in terms of those who have applied and also in terms of those who are today benefiting because we've been able to make the disbursements and grow those numbers. So that's sort of the landscape. But if you want me to add to that, I can also tell you that the current number of students who have registered for this loan, who have registered on our platform but haven't applied necessarily for the loan, is over 500,000. That's over 500,000 students. Nigerian students have registered and shown an interest. Of that number, 400,000 plus have actually applied, and some of them are awaiting approval and disbursement from us.
So I'm looking at a document now titled Student Loan Weekly Dashboard, and the date on this is Sunday, 2nd March 2025 at 8 a.m. We have that document. You can show it on screen. I don't know if Mr. Sawyer can see it where he is as well. I just want to understand if this tallies with the figures that we currently have, because I'm seeing the total amount of institution plus upkeep. It's been a long, I read figures this much, so I understand what the governor was going through when he was reading his budget the last time, I think, in Edo State. But this is looking like 133 billion naira, right?
So let me explain the dashboard that you're referring to. So that is a weekly dashboard. So it's a dashboard that we put out every Sunday. Okay, and what you're reading there is the top numbers. I don't have the dashboard in front of me, but I can try to talk you through it. So what you're reading there is a figure that shows around 500,000 people have actually registered. So you'll see a section there that's called registrants. You'll see another section that's called applicants, so those who have applied. Now, once you apply for this loan, we have to make sure that there's provision to pay out against the number of applications. Because once you've applied, it means you have a reasonable chance of actually getting the loan. And we can't be telling you stories once you've applied. So the numbers you see, institutional upkeep, are the numbers that we are committed to if every single person gets that loan.
All right.
That figure, that 130 odd billion, is not what we've disbursed.
Okay.
It's what we are committed to because people have taken the trouble to apply, and we believe that those applications have a reasonable chance of getting through.
Okay, these are the figures that
Does
must
that make
go
sense?
out.
Is that clear to you?
Based on the number of people who have applied. I think I get that. Interesting. So
if they're successful, those are the sort of numbers we would have to pay out. We have to, as a responsible lender, we have to ring fence those funds in case every single person is approved.
Well, I think it adequately explains the difference in the figures. But precisely, what is NELFOD doing to address concerns over funds legitimacy, and what measures are in place to ensure transparency and accountability as regards what's being disbursed?
Okay, so I missed the first part of your question. Can you repeat it? I heard the transparency and accountability, which was the second part.
Yes, the concern about funds legitimacy and what measures you have in place to ensure transparency and accountability of what is being disbursed.
Okay, so the first part of your question was around legitimacy, is that right?
Exactly.
Okay, legitimacy of what? I mean, we're receiving funds from government, they're legitimate funds. So I'm not sure what you mean by legitimacy.
Well, I know that part of the, correct me if I'm wrong, but part of the law that created the fund requires you to source funds from gifts and donations, right?
I see. Okay. So now I get where you're coming from. So look, we haven't started sourcing funds from non-governmental sources. Currently, all the funds that we are expending or that we're disbursing are a mixture of intervention funding from the EFCC, 50 billion, from TED Fund, 141 billion, from appropriation, 10 billion. So the funds that we're disbursing are funds that have been made possible by presidential interventions, by President Tinubu's intervention to ensure that whilst we're waiting for the 1% that the law stipulates that we should be able to access each year on a first line charge from the FIRS, while we're waiting for that, I think the President is very keen that we begin to disburse funds and the students begin to benefit. So those are where the funds are from. We haven't started sourcing private sector funding. And to go to the second half of your question, which directly relates to that, transparency and accountability are absolutely crucial if you're going to ask people to bring their money and deposit it in a government bank for government activity. You know, we're really transparent. We try to publish all the figures. We try to account for the figures. We try to answer questions about how money is going, where it's going, who it's going to. We're doing our very best to make sure that we can give account to the public as to where the funds are, because we also recognize that the day that this becomes, you know, an exercise in we're not sure by the general public, how we're going to get funds raised into it. And for sustainability, we cannot rely on government forever. This is not a one administration, two administration program. This is something that the president wants to last way into the future. All right. And way into into the next few decades or even centuries. Who knows?
Absolutely, that is key if you're going to hit your target of 1.2 million students. But the last time you were here, we were asking questions about why more people in the north, were applying for this particular fund. The conversation has been that previous data seem to have shown that students in the northern part of the country were more disposed to access the loan. What's the update with that? Has that changed?
So, yeah. So, this question comes up all the time, and I think it's a very fair question. Look, if you look at demographics of Nigeria, if you look at poverty levels, if you look at availability and access to funds, if you look at attitudes, whether cultural or religious, all of these things give a coloration to how people respond to products, services, any offer you put on the table for people. Their judgment is affected by, their culture, their gender, their tribe, the amount of disposable income they have, how wealthy the state is, what interventions the states themselves have put in place towards that particular thing, in this case, education. I think when you look at this very carefully, you'll find that the states that have the greatest need, that perhaps have less objection to taking loans, that perhaps have a different view or a sort of more innovative approach to making things happen within communities, those states, those regions tend to be far more proactive. Now, in the long run, it doesn't mean that they will be the ones who benefit the most, because, there are what I call those who lag behind but eventually take the lead. This, by the way, is a marathon. This initiative is a marathon. It's not a sprint. 240 days down the line, we're talking about who's first, who's second, who's third. In a marathon, it doesn't matter who's first, second, or third in the first, quarter of the race. What matters is who's got stamina. And what I think we'll find is that over time, these things will even out. But what we're doing is, where we find the numbers are low, we're making strong initiatives to go and dig people out, to go and look for people so that the numbers go up. Whether it's even with gender, we're launching initiatives that are targeting women, because the numbers of women applying is lower. There's no shame in admitting that the whole thing isn't even at this point. But there are initiatives and plans. First of all, we recognize those differences, and there are initiatives and plans to try and correct and even it out, because this is an equal opportunities initiative.
So we have just about 7 more minutes, and I want to ask quite a number of questions. But is the high volume of daily application you talked about the last time, between 1,000 and 1,005, can you confirm if the momentum is still up as we speak?
I can absolutely confirm that. The answer to your question is yes.
Okay. So as we speak right now, despite the loans benefits, many students still remain unaware and skeptical. Are you concerned about this, or you see it as an opportunity to manage current resources more effectively?
So, this country has 200 million people in it. We've been going for 200 plus days. I'm not concerned about the lack of awareness everywhere on day one. We have to roll the information out, which is dependent on the resources available for us to do that. Most of our money is to pay fees, not to sort of, make too much noise. But you know what? The noise is important. We recognize that. We want to do it in a way that is actually effective. So that when you ask questions about, people are unaware in certain places or not taking it up in other places, we have 2 issues. One is to create awareness. 2 is to reduce information or misconception. So those 2 go hand in hand. We need to understand what the misconceptions are. That takes us doing this for a little bit of time. Understand what the misinformation is. If we don't know, we can't act. And then, of course, we're going to go across the country. We've done students, we've done tertiary institutions, state and federal, by the way, not just state. So we've done that. Now we're going to expand into marketplaces. We're going to do town halls with parents. We're going to put billboards in certain places. We're going to do radio jingles and maybe even more television adverts.
All right.
But, essentially, we've operated initially through social media, which is where most of this demographic are to be found.
So I don't know if you are aware of certain concerns about students who have alleged that their institutions got the money, but it has not been disbursed. I'm going to read 2 tweets to get your reaction. One is from Muritala Haruna, and the other one is from a Twitter, an ex-handle by the name Samuel Son. So Muritala says, our school, FCET Bichi, affiliated with ATBO, received our NELFund loan but refused to use it for our registration. They claim that the money has been spent elsewhere. Many students are stranded. Please intervene and ensure the funds are used correctly. And then he goes on to tag at NELFund. And then the other tweet says, with the students of Abubakar Tafawa Balewa University, Bauchi took NELFund loans to pay our school fees. NELFund has disbursed the funds to the university, yet ATBU has refused to clear our fees. With exams fast approaching, we face being denied entry despite our fees being paid. This is unjust, unacceptable, and a threat to our future. Quickly, how do you respond to that?
The first thing I want to say is that if this is correct, it is most unfortunate. This administration, the President Tinubu administration, has gone to great lengths to make sure that students have uninterrupted, unfettered access to classes, to tutorials, to seminars, to examinations. So it's most unfair if NELFund have disbursed payments to institutions and students are denied access. Unfortunately, we don't have the powers in law as NELFund to compel the institutions to do, whatever they choose to do with the funds. But I will repeat, if this is correct, it is unfortunate because it is depriving people who have been long suffering of the opportunity to get what they need to get that's been provided by the Tinubu administration. All right. I hope it's incorrect, but we do have agencies in this country and we have regulatory bodies that regulate the institutions, and we have law enforcement agencies that regulate financial dealings of government and non-governmental institutions. NELFund doesn't have the power to compel institutions to do this. We can encourage, we can cajole, we can talk, but again, we need to be careful because some of these things are allegations and there may be reasons why these things are happening. So we're very careful about playing the blame game.
I hear you.
We don't believe in it. We just want to encourage institutions.
Of course, the schools have a right of reply, and we'll be hoping to hear from them as well. Perhaps there is a clarity and explanation for why these accusations are being made. But 2025, you mentioned, is the year for NELFund skills. This is the second quarter. Where are we now? So, the Honorable Minister for Education, Dr. Tunji Alausa, and has been, we've been working very closely with the Minister and the Ministry, and they've got some great plans around skills. And, we're just wanting to make sure that we are completely aligned in terms of the vision of the Ministry of Education, which we believe in. And so I think with that one, you'll be hearing more soon from the Honourable Minister and his team and how, they see NELFund fitting into a bigger strategy around upgrading of skills. So that would be my answer to that for now. We really want to take the lead from them and really support the wider initiatives. We don't want to run in parallel, or we don't want to duplicate things that are going on. So we're going to work in synergy like Siamese twins with the ministry. So you're not privy to exactly how soon that will start? Well, it's imminent. I think within the next 4 weeks, 4 to 6 weeks, you'll begin to see some movement in that direction. So watch this space. In the next 4 to 6 weeks, you'll begin to see some things happening. But I don't want to preempt the Honourable Minister because I know that he's got some great plans in that direction. Well, you said watch this space as if perhaps you return to this show in 6 weeks. Good place to leave it. Mr. Sawyer, it's always a wonderful time having this conversation with you on TV. Thank you very much indeed. I just want to also make a very quick comment because I think, I get a lot of praise and accolades for this, but, we're also very well supported, especially by the Office of the Secretary to the Federal Government, Senator George Akume. I need to say this because, these are institutions of government that have supported us very well. Thank you. Thank you for having me on your show. Glad to have you, Cam. Akitude Sawyer is MD CEO NELFund. That's our show today, everyone. Thanks for being a part of it. You can watch it again at midnight and at 6 a.m. tomorrow. I am Nifemi Okuto.